Hi Huskies, Mrs. Baylous here. I'm going to read one of my favorite funny stories called John, Paul, George, and Ben. Hope you enjoy it. All right, Huskies. Our story begins when once there were 4 lads, John, Hancock, Paul, Revere, George, Washington, and Ben Franklin. Oh yes, there was also Tom Jefferson, but he was annoyingly independent and hardly ever around. These lads were always getting into trouble for one reason or another. In other words, they took a few liberties, and to be honest, they were not always appreciated. This is the story of 5 little lads before they became 5 really big founding fathers. John, Paul, George, and Ben by Lane Smith. Once there were 4 lads, John, Paul, George, and Ben. Make that 5 lads. There was also independent Tom, always off doing his own thing. John was a bold lad. At the start of every school year, the students were asked to write their names on the chalkboard, and every year was the same story. John, his teacher would say, you have lovely penmanship. John, your confidence is refreshing. But John, come on. We don't need to write it from space. Paul was a noisy lad. Before film was invented, people joined bell-ringing clubs. As a member at Boston's Old North Church, Paul spent hours practicing in the belfry tower. Bong, bong, bong. Over time, that bell ringing took a toll on young Paul. All day his head was filled with loud bings and bongs. He had to practically scream just to hear himself talk. Now that's fine around the belfry, but not at work. Extra large underwear. Sure, we have some. Let's see. Large, extra large. Here they are. Great big extra large underwear. Paul was like a bullhorn in a china shop. Your wig? Yes, it's coming. And your polka dot shirts are coming. And the pink breeches are coming. Took many years and a midnight ride for people to finally appreciate his special talents. The redcoats are coming! Everyone except that big underwear lady. She was still mad. George was an honest lad. One day he took his shiny new hatchet and chopped down his family's cherry tree. When his father discovered the tree, he asked, Son, do you know who killed this beautiful little cherry tree? I cannot tell a lie, answered George. 'Twas I who chopped down the cherry tree. Then run to my arms, dearest boy, cried his father, for you have paid me with 1,000-fold with your honesty. Really? Said George. In that case, when I tell you I've taken out the apple orchard, leveled the barn, and made kindling of your carriage, you'll be a wealthy, wealthy man. Ben was a clever lad. Not only did he have a saying for every situation, he generously shared them with anyone, anywhere, at any time. Fish and visitors stink after 3 days. He considered it his duty to provide frequent free advice. The sleeping fox catches no poultry. Those who in quarrels interpose must often wipe a bloody nose. If your head is wax, don't walk in the sun. 3 can keep a secret of 2 if 2 of them are dead. The town folks were so taken by his generosity, they came up with the saying, especially for Ben. Please shut your big yap. I like it, said Ben. Short and to the point. Work a fox or a turkey in there, and I think you've got something. Tom was an independent lad. One day, his teacher, Mr. Douglas, asked the class to make birdhouses by gluing macaroni to ye old balsa wood. Tom happily ignored him and used traditional building materials in a neoclassical design. When the class made a palm tree, Tom took one look and said, "Not in your life!" then quickly left to sketch his own tree. "Young Thomas," fumed Teacher Douglas, "would you mind explaining to the class why you insist on working so independently?" "Certainly," said Tom. "In fact, I've taken the liberty to list a few reasons." "Fear not, sir. I've used small words for the benefit of the dullards." Tom learned the power of his words that day. Mr. Douglas told him to pursue all of life, liberty, and happiness that he wanted independently in the corner. The other students pursued lunch. Well, Huskies, the rest is history. Say, you want a revolution? Well, John, Paul, George, Ben, and Tom sure did. In April of 1775, they got one. The Redcoats were coming. In fact, King George III's army was marching to Lexington and Concord to arrest John and the other Sons of Liberty. Fortunately, Paul Revere was a noisy man. After his midnight ride, every Minuteman, woman, and child knew who was coming and what they'd be wearing. It was the start of the Revolutionary War. The Americans needed to formally state their separation from the king. Who better than Thomas Jefferson, an independent man, to write the Declaration of Independence? Simply signing such a document was treasonous and dangerous. Ben Franklin, a clever man, said it best, "We must all hang together," he quipped, "or assuredly we shall all hang separately." One might think twice about signing his name. Not John Hancock, a bold man. He was the first to scribble his autograph. And man, just look at the size of that John Hancock. The war was won thanks to General Washington. Everyone thought he would make a great king for the new United States of America. But George Washington was an honest man. "The last thing we need is another King George," he said. President George, however, has a nice ring to it. Ye old epilogue. George didn't live in the White House like all the other presidents. He was asked to live in New York City, where there aren't so many trees. The end. And Huskies, my question for you to ponder, this is a really fun story, is I'd like you to think of some other historical figures and maybe think of a fun spin that you could come up with of a fun story like the one we just read. Have a great day.